Family, glad to be back with you. Okay, hold on. All right, know my sound working. Facebook got a man. It's a wild delay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Facebook got a wild delay. I feel like that thing is a minute behind. But anyway, family, glad to be back with you for another Thursday night book club. I hope you have been having a fantastic week. I have. It's been busy. I generally work from home, so when the work slow down, I get to slow down, but the work ain't slowed down today. Good thing, guys. This is my Friday. Whoop, 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 whoop. So I got tomorrow off, but I think I'm gonna take some allergy shots anyway. Um, yeah, I am going to take some allergy shots. But thanks for joining. If it's your first time here, this is Soul Swami Live. We generally do shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Our Tuesday show is all things healing. And we discuss healing in several different ways, whether it be discussions, prompt questions, videos, live energy readings, just anything that centers around healing and us being able to heal. And Thursday, tonight, book club is a spinoff of that. It is in an effort for us to reconnect to the child in us by allowing someone to read to us. You know what I mean? As live as it could be. It's a little different than the audiobook because you can look at me too and you can fully get my energy and all those things. So before our shows, we generally do some sort of energy cleansing, and we do every chakra or energy point. So this week we are on the sacral. The color for sacral is orange, hence the orange tending to the lights. So if you are into light therapy, there you go. You want orange color lights. Sacral is good for your sexuality, your emotions, your creativity, your relationships, and is your pleasure center. That's why so many of us are sacral thinkers, whether we like to live it or not. We put a lot of our decisions on our sacral, even celibacy. If you are a person that celebrates is practicing celibacy or abstaining, then you are a sacral thinker. You know what I mean? So, and that's okay. That's not a judgment. This is a statement. It's all right to be a sacral thinker. Excuse me. If you are into aromatherapy, you want to think of things like rose, patchouli, orange, and sage is good. If you're into crystals and stones, orange stones. You want to think outside of orange, some other things. Amber is good. No, that's my best friend name. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Orange calcite, tiger's eye is good for so many different things. Carnelian, things like that. Do, 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 do. The element is water. So our visualization is simple this week. Outside of working on the energy point, we do that through sound bowl, sound. We do a breathing exercise, and then we also do a visualization and affirmation. I think this week for our breathing exercise, we are going to do. Tuesday we did 478, and I feel like a 478, so that might be good for us. Don't worry, I'll explain how to do it. It's just simply you breathe in for a 4 count, hold for a 7 count, and out for an 8 count. But again, you won't have to worry about that because I'll keep the count for you. All you got to do is just focus on your breathing and being present and receiving and releasing whatever you need to receive and releasing whatever you need to release. With that, we will start with our bowl. I got my ukulele out too. If you're new here, listen. I am not a musician at all. So But I love sounds. I love music. I love sounds, which that speaks to my spirit. So that's why I have all these instruments. I mean, we hadn't used the rain stick in a while, but we not. Um, yeah, here we go. I also got to pause. You might hear me do that. Listen from the music that's playing in the beginning of my show. I'm so excited about that because that is actual music I made. Da, 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 da. Whew, you gotta forgive me, family. I keep laughing at myself because this is my work outfit. Some pajama pants with my socks tucked in, and I put on a shirt today. I had to do several things on camera. Don't sound right. right, so if you're in a position, hopefully relax a little bit now, and now you can just listen to the sound of my voice as we do a breathing exercise. Again, we're doing 4-7-8. That is, you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold your breath for 7, and you breathe out for 8. But all you have to do is just focus on your breathing, and I will keep the count for you. On the count of 3, family, we will start. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. We start. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. I'm laughing because I think my spirit wanted to do 4-4-4 instead of 4-7-8. So we changed the count to 4-4-4. On the count of 3, breathe in again. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Now, if your eyes are open, close them. And in your mind's eye, imagine you are standing in a pool of water that reaches up to your neck, or you're being rained on. But either way, however you imagine in your mind's eye, how you are interacting with the water, make sure however you interact, whether you are swimming, dancing in the rain, you feel the water washing you anew, clearing your stress away, giving you stability in your emotions, igniting your creativity, strengthening your relationships. With every breath in, you breathe in hope, and every breath out, you breathe out dope. So as you are interacting and healing and breathing in hope and exhaling doubt, I want you to repeat these affirmations with me. I am a creative being. I deserve to enjoy life. I am emotionally balanced. I welcome sensuality into my life. I am worthy and lovable. I am a creative being. I deserve to enjoy life. I am emotionally balanced. I welcome sensuality into my life. And I am worthy and lovable. All right, family. I don't even remember where we are. Oh, he finally made him some white friends, and he went and hung over Meg and Danny's house, and he finally invited some of them over his house. He went to a new newspaper, and you know what I mean. Well, no, he hadn't. Yeah, he went back. I think he didn't take the Atlanta job or somebody's job. It didn't give him that. But anyway. Yeah, that's where he at. He got him some new friends, work friends at that. So, and we're at the part where he He invited his work friends over to his place and they ate. After a while, I found that I looked forward to talking to Danny. We grew closer and, in jest, gave each other silly nicknames. I started calling him Danny Boy, and he called me Nate McMahon. Nate McMahon, how you doing, bro? I'd say fine, Danny Boy, just fine. At some point during those 2 years he lived in Atlanta, somebody broke into Danny's house. I felt strange about that. On his face, it supported the stereotype of crime ridden black neighborhoods. I wondered if it would conjure up racial stereotypes and send him running for cover, as it would many pretentious liberal whites I'd seen. But Danny treated it like any break in. It didn't seem to matter to him whether the burglar was black or white. He stayed right in the neighborhood until he left Atlanta. More than anything, more than anything else, that told me that this cat was for real. When Danny found out that I had a bike, he suggested that we get together and go bike riding one Saturday morning. I agreed, and we were on. He pulled up to my place the following Saturday, driving an old green station wagon he'd bought from college. We threw the bikes in and drove deep into the country. We picked off a turnoff spot, parked the car alongside the road, unloaded the bikes. We rode for hours and talked about everything. I asked him tough questions about whites. He asked me tough questions about the blacks. He'd offer his theory on a matter, then wait for my response. I respected his sincerity so much so that I even confided in him that I'd been to prison. I hadn't told anyone else at the paper about my prison past, not even other blacks. The country road was deserted except for occasional passing pickup truck. After a long period of silence, Danny came up with another question. You're pretty angry inside, aren't you, Nate McMahon? Nah, Danny boy, I'm not angry. I'm fucking furious. Danny frowned. God, Nate, you think about race all the time? Give it a rest, man. It ain't healthy. I told Danny I didn't have a choice in the matter. You can sit around and intellectualize about race when you want to, and when you get tired of it, you can set it aside and go surfing or hang gliding and forget all about it. But I can't. Race affects every facet of my life, man. I can't get past race because white folks won't let me get past it. They remind me of it everywhere I go. Every time I step in the elevator, a white woman bunches up in the corner like she thinks I want to rape her. I'm forced to think about it. Every time I walk in the stores, the suspicious look that white shopkeepers' eyes make me think about it. Every time I walk past whites sitting in their car, I hear the doors locked clicking and I think about it. I can't get away from it, man. I stay mad all the time because I'm forced to spend so much time and energy reacting to race. I hate it. It wearies me. But there's no escape, man. No escape. When I finished talking, I felt like I had preached a sermon. I didn't realize I had that much frustration bottled up until I let it out on Danny. At first, I wondered why I told him so much of what was going on inside my head. Then I realized that despite all I'd said in the past about not caring what white folks thought, I cared a lot. In fact, I had spent my whole life reacting to what they thought. The notion that one of them really cared about what I thought, moved me. Danny was the first white person I met whom actually saw trying hard to understand. It meant a lot to me that he tried because he wanted to and not because he had to. By the same token, he helped me see the world through white eyes and helped me better understand the fear and ignorance behind prejudice. I learned something else from Danny that I hadn't been clear up to before. I learned how little, even the most highly educated white folks really know about blacks. He was very well educated, and yet He struggled to understand some of the most basic things about black life in America. He struggled because in school he hadn't been taught diddly about blacks. Even though he saw us every day and interacted with us, we were puzzles to him. That showed me that the education system in this country has failed white people more than it has failed anybody else. It has crippled them and limited their humanity. There's one they're the ones who need to know the most about everybody because they're the ones running the country. They've been taught so little about anybody other than white people that they can't understand even when they try. During one of our bike rides, we stopped and sat down on the side of a grassy mound to take a break from the scorching sun. About 100 yards behind us, there was a huge white house sitting on a large tract of land. We were sitting there talking and tossing pebbles in the street when a white man crept up behind us. "Hi," he said. We both said hello. I expected the man to tell us to get off his grass. Instead, he said something that startled me. "You guys look hot. I got a full-size swimming pool in the backyard if you want to take a swim." Initially, his words didn't register with me. In my mind, there was something wrong with that picture. After all, this was deep South Georgia, and we were in some country town. I'd come out here half expecting to encounter hillbillies with gun racks in the windows of their pickup trucks. Now this cat was inviting us, a black and a white, to take a dip in his swimming pool. Danny looked at me and I said, "No thanks, we're about to leave." The man was almost insistent. "Really, I don't mind. Help yourself and cool off if you want to." "No, we're going to leave." The man smiled warmly and said, "Okay, if you change your mind, feel free to come on over." "Thanks." We got up and rode off. Later, I reflected on what that might have been about. I think the white man was moved by the picture of a white guy and a black dude sitting on the side of the road rapping. I could be wrong, but I think the sight of us warmed his heart and he wanted to take part in our interracial communion for reasons of his own. Danny and I never discussed it, but I never forgot it because gestures like that were so rare in my experience. Oops. Get deep down. Danny told me sometime in 1987 that he and Meg planned to go to Africa to travel and work as freelance writers for a while. Initially, I felt envious that he, a white guy, would get the chance to go to my homeland, which I'd never been to as an adult. I told him how I felt. "See, you white motherfuckers get to do everything in the world you want to do." He insisted, "Nate, there's nothing stopping you from doing what you want to do in life. You can go to Africa too." That started the running debate. "No, I can't, Danny. You don't understand. You white boys could take off from work anytime, hitchhike across the country, and spend a couple of years hoboing in Europe. Then, when you get ready to resume your career, the white establishment will welcome you back in with open arms. But if I try to do some shit like that, Mr. Charlie's going to want to know where I've been and why there's a gap in my resume." That's the truth. As a matter of fact, I've had black people judge me more on that. Gaps on my resume or that I move around. He's going to want me to give him an account of any time that I was not spent slaving for him. I had no frame of reference for Dane's opinion. All I knew was that every black person I had ever met had lived life aware of the limitations imposed by race, and that those who tried to do what they truly wanted to were met with intense opposition. I felt it was easy for Danny to think there were no ceilings because he hadn't known any. Danny didn't win me over on that issue before leaving Atlanta, but he dropped a piece of advice on me that changed my thinking about something else. He said, "Look, Nate McMahon, you may not believe this, but there are several white people in the newsroom who are really good people. You should give them a chance before writing them off as racist. Get to know some of them. You might be pleasantly surprised. Later, I thought about what he had said. I thought about those whites who had tried to be friendly and the semi meaningful talks I'd had some of them in the newsroom. Among them was a political reporter who seemed sincere and two editors I had grown to like. Maybe, I thought, I should open up more and be receptive to the fact that there are some good whites in the world. Somehow, just thinking about that thought made me feel better. I realized that I needed to know that there might be other white people like Danny and Meg, and that there was some reason for hope in this deeply disturbed nation of ours. Danny and Meg left for Africa. Of all the white people I know, they are among the very few that I can call friends. It's sad this gulf between blacks and whites. We're so afraid of each other. January 10th, 1987. Chapter 38, The Yankees. In the South, the past is not dead. The past is not even the past. William Faulkner. Old Danny Boy was right about one thing. Once I became more receptive to some of the friendly whites at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, they proved to be okay. Before leaving for Africa, he pulled my coat to the cool ones and the closet racists. Some of them were sincere as any bloods I knew. One, an editor, engaged me in long talks that were deep and funny as those between Danny and me. My interaction with the whites eased some of the tensions I felt in the newsroom. It wasn't so traumatic being at work around them. I even loosened up enough to begin going to lunch and the drinks after work with some. After I got to know some of the whites pretty well, I told one of my homeboys one day, there are some good white folks out there. He shook his head and looked away like he was pondering it. Yeah, there are some good ones, but the ones that are bad are really bad. We laughed ourselves silly. A lot of the pressures I felt to leave the system was eased by some major personal change at the paper. In an effort to convert the Journal-Constitution into a world-class newspaper, the owners went out and recruited some of the top journalists in the country to run it. They started with a guy named Bill Kovac, who had served at the Washington bureau chief of the New York Times, and who had a reputation as a journalist of impeccable skills and integrity. After pulling together his own team of people from the Times, Kovac came in right away and reworked the entire paper, changing its appearance and writing style. Kovac's arrival virtually split the newsroom into two camps. There were those who were happy to see somebody come in and break up the entrenched good old boy system and raise our journalistic standards. And there were the deep South compatriots who didn't like change and couldn't stomach it, even less at the hands of a Yankee. I heard that term a lot in Atlanta. Whites in and around that area still mourn the loss of the Civil War as if it ended. They still do. They still do. As if it ended only a few months earlier. And they strongly resented outsiders, especially the Yankees they deemed responsible for shattering their splendid plantation culture. They glorified the days of white-run cotton plantation and black handkerchief-head nincompoops depicted in Gone with the Wind. It occurred to me that if these white people hadn't yet gotten over a war fought more than 100 years ago, they hadn't even begun to deal with their heads with modern racism and equality. Watching some of the good old boys huddling conspiriality in clusters, grumbling all the time, them damn Yankees coming in and taking over. You would have thought that they were planning to fight the fucking Civil War all over again. Some got mad and quit. Kovac fired others. It was interesting seeing white people warring against each other like that. I enjoyed watching the carnage. Kovac's arrival revealed something to me about whites in the Deep South that I hadn't fully understood before. They have a deeply rooted inferiority complex that really does stem partly from the stupid war. To this day, I figure those northern whites must work the mojo number on their minds and humiliated them so badly that they passed that humiliation down through generations in the same way black folks have passed along humiliation of slavery. What really got to the good old boys was that Kovac's actions indicated that the old bunch running the paper was incompetent, which I guess supported the myth of the dumb hick southerner. I concluded that Southern whites' inferiority complex may be the reason they cling so desperately to racism. They need to feel they are superior to somebody in the world. Didn't just upset people working under him, he managed to piss off his bosses just as much. I think his bosses assumed he'd come in and be the typical executive newspaper hypocrite, talk about impartiality and aggressiveness in journalism, and overlook the newsworthy sins of powerful people who brought in advertising. But Kovac refused to get cozy with the powerful. When an executive from Coca-Cola, one of the most influential corporations in Atlanta, invited Kovac to dinner, Kovac turned him down. That upset top management terribly. When that happened, I became convinced that he was one of the few white managers on that level who actually believed in journalistic ideas he preached. Others talked a good game, but used the rhetoric of journalism like Reagan and Bush used the rhetoric of patriotism to manipulate and deceive. Just like patriotism is used now, right? Kovac's arrival was poetic justice for blacks in the newsroom. For a while, we walked around gloating with looks on our faces that said, well, what do you know? These crackers were so persistent in trying to prove us incompetent. Now, come to find out, they were faking the funk. They didn't take it well when the tables were turned. Compared to the tough times we had under the old regime, blacks and women were in hog heaven after Kovac got there. We got opportunities to do things that had been closed options before. I didn't know whether or not he was less racist or sexist than anyone else, but he seemed to offer equal opportunities, and that's all any of us could ask. Clearly, Kovac was smart enough to know that black journalists were valued assets in a largely black city. As soon as he took over, he promoted some blacks to city desk and made sure others were included on major stories done by the paper. He promoted me to City Hall bureau chief. What? When he began utilizing blacks, some whites in the newsroom started mumbling that affirmative action shit again. But I knew what that was about. I knew the real deal. Some white people are so accustomed to operating at a competitive advantage that when the playing field is level, they feel handicapped. That's why they blamed it on something else. They so used to having the advantage. That's why they trying to, ooh, Lord have mercy. They trying to take away the things that gave them that advantage. I mean, they trying to take away the things that took away that advantage. In a short span of time that Kovac was at the Journal-Constitution, I got to travel out of town on more assignments than I had in my entire time in journalism. I went to Miami to cover the mayor's conference and to New Orleans for the Republican National Convention. I even went on a trip to Europe with Andy Young and a group of other politicians and businessmen in trade delegations seeking to attract businesses to Atlanta. I hadn't been out of the country since I was 4 when the family lived in Morocco. First, we went to Switzerland where delegation members met and dined with Swiss dignitaries and made pitches promoting investment opportunities in Atlanta. Then we caught a train over the Swiss Alps to Milan. There were more tours, luncheons, and dinners. I wrote stories about the trip and sent them in from the laptop computer. I trailed Andy Young everywhere as he dazzled Italian dignitaries with his knowledge of the intimate details of world politics. At various times during the trip, the irony of me being abroad dawned on me. The experience was so far from anything I'd ever imagined I, I would do that I wondered how I gotten here. I've done that before. I'm like, boy, where did I make this turn? Sometimes I'd stop in the middle of an activity and ask myself, what are you doing here? Only a few years ago you were in prison. Now you're in Milan, Italy. With Andrew Young, life is incredible. That dawning was like a quickening of the spirit. When that happened, it seemed my consciousness was suspended and I could feel all the power and wonder of the universe flowing through me. At the end of the trip, the delegation leaders threw a final dinner to celebrate the success of the trade mission. After we ate, the host talked. The host asked various people to say a few words. Andy spoke, and he was followed by other delegation members. Then, surprisingly, the host turned to me and said, "Now we would like to hear from our journalist friend." I was speechless. I wondered, should I make a comment as a journalist or speak from the heart? I wanted to speak from the heart and tell them what this experience really meant to me. I wanted to tell them that I had never imagined in my wildest prison dreams that I would get an experience as enriching as this. I wanted to say all that and more, but I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. When I realized that everybody around the huge table was watching and waiting for me to say something, I choked up even more. They looked at me like they feared something was wrong, like they thought I might be about to have a heart attack and were wondering if someone should call a paramedic. I glanced at Andy. He too appeared concerned. Desperate, I forced some words out my mouth. It probably didn't make sense, but I had to say something. When I finished, there was an eerie silence in the room. Then somebody spoke up and rescued the moment, and the celebration continued. I can tell some of the people were embarrassed for me. I was embarrassed for myself. I felt so bad I wanted to get up and bolt from the room. After dinner, I retreated to my room and sulked. How had I allowed this to happen? Why had I not been able to still my nerves and do what I was called upon to do? I felt frustrated, yet I understood why I choked. I had been called on to at precisely one of those moments when I was in the middle of dawning. Mentally, I had been far away, basking in the splendor of the moment and savoring my connectedness to the universe. This has been the most rewarding of my 6 years as a journalist. I traveled to Milan, Italy, Zurich, Switzerland, and with Mayor Andrew Young. I went to Miami, Florida for a conference of black mayors and a National Association of Black Journalists convention. I have interviewed for jobs in New York at the Black Enterprise magazine. I have traveled to Richmond, Virginia, and Tennessee. Furthermore, I boasted my career at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with strong stories about City Hall, and I'm bureau chief over 2 other reporters. These experiences solidify my belief that I can do anything I set my mind to. The possibilities are boundless. What is also clear to me is that my achievement efforts will be hampered or helped by my mate. That does. I need someone who's goal-oriented, who really knows that dreams are attainable. Although I am married, I look past my wife because she has no sense of direction and she is not motivated enough to even draw upon my resources and drive. For these reasons, I must terminate the union. If I don't, I'll face a life of unfulfilled dreams. The sad thing is that we have 2 beautiful children who undoubtedly will suffer some personal deprivations. That pains me, but not more than the prospect of spending the remainder of my days with a woman I neither love or respect. This is funny because She doesn't have to have your dreams. She just has to have the skills to navigate your dream waters. And you don't like to keep her in your world. So she can't learn those skills. You keep them separate. They're like, dude needs some therapy. Even in all his decisions, his decisions, even though he likes to position them at times as morally correct, they are genuinely selfish and short-sighted. He doesn't even pause to think about other possibilities. So he just immediately went to, this can't work, instead of asking, how can I make this work? Debbie telephoned me in the newsroom just as I was putting on my coat to head out for an interview. Nathan, this is Debbie. I'm at Georgia Baptist Hospital. What's the matter? It's Maya. She got real sick this morning. I took her to the doctor, and he said he's afraid she might have meningitis. He told me to rush to the emergency room. As she told me that the doctors were examining our 2-year-old daughter, her voice broke and she started crying. I rushed out the newsroom and headed to a downtown Atlanta hospital. While speeding through traffic, my mind ran the gamut of possibilities. Of course, the thought that haunted me most, the one I refused to think about too hard, was the possibility that Maya would die. I uttered a prayer and struggled to steel my nerves. God, please don't test me this way. I can handle anything but this. I felt that if Maya didn't pull through, I wouldn't make it either. I'd be walking, breathing, living dead man. I reached the hospital within 15 minutes and found Debbie pacing in the waiting room. We talked with doctors about Maya's condition, and they told us they would have to conduct tests to determine if she really did have meningitis. They performed the test and admitted her to the hospital. When we went to her room, she was lying inside a crib with needles in her arm and the oxygen tent surrounding her. The doctor said it may be several days before we can get her condition under control. Debbie and I decided that we should be with Maya around the clock. She pulled days and I went there every night after work. Maya was subdued. She sprang to life, however, whenever I left the room to go to the bathroom or to get a soda. She'd wail hysterically until I returned. Some nights after she had fallen asleep, I sat there in the chair near the crib and stared at that young soul and wondered, how do you get them through life? How do you protect them and minimize their hurts? After nearly a week, Maya's condition improved, and the doctor said that she would pull through. It turned out she didn't exactly suffer from meningitis, but had some related conditions that it could lead to it. We took our daughter home and celebrated her impending health. Debbie and I worked well together when faced with emergencies like that. That's why she might be more beneficial to your life if you include her. We got through a brief scare with cancer that she suffered, as well as the many frightening bumps and bruises the children got. It was the calm times we had trouble managing. The times when all was quiet, everyone was healthy, and we were forced to look at each other and acknowledge that there was something vital missing from our marriage. We still argued a lot about everything. How we would celebrate Christmas with the children, her mother's frequent visits and long stays, money problems, me staying out too late at night with Chip and Claxton, my two homeboys. I was constantly reminded of how different we were, even in the way we interacted with other people. Debbie, who worked as a secretary at Emory University, had a few friends she had just met on the job, but she did most of her socializing with her family and the family of her ex-fiance, who also lived in Atlanta. That's wild. I met lots of smart, stimulating people through my work and formed new and healthy social networks that I hadn't had in Portsmouth. I cut into a group of people who worked at City Hall and we often got together on weekends for food, drinks, Scrabble, and conversations with our families. Within the group, there was several. See, he doing all this stuff without his woman. That's what I'm talking about. He talking about they everybody else bringing their family. Within the group, there were several women who were intelligent and progressive, the kind of women I enjoyed being around. We get involved in the debates about politics, current events, books, and other things. Debbie was cordial towards them but maintained her distance, and she was so quiet when around them that it began to make them and me uncomfortable. Initially, I thought that maybe she suspected I was trying to hit on one of the women in the group, so I encouraged her to get to know them better in hopes that she see the relationships were strictly platonic. They weren't. He lining up. She ain't wrong. He trying to line up his next woman, and he trying to make them get comfortable with that. That'd be wild. With that, man, listen. Then one night, something happened that showed me that Debbie's hang-up ran deeper than female jealousy. I took her to a big party being thrown by some black Atlanta politician. All kinds of other politicians and folks from the city, black gentry were there, including one of Andy Young's top assistants. Spotting me, the assistant walked over and I introduced Debbie as my wife. The assistant said, "My pleasure meeting you," and asked her a question to get the conversation going. Debbie just looked at him and smiled sheepishly, like he wasn't talking to her. The guy repeated the question, and the reaction was the same. She froze, just like she often had when my city hall friends were around. I cut in and changed the conversation to try to rescue my wife. I was embarrassed. The assistant was embarrassed, and I'm sure Debbie was embarrassed too. He just talked about how he froze in that situation like that, right? It's interesting. The incident brought home something I'd suspect but was unsure of. Debbie was intimidated by intelligent and influential black folks, so much so that she withdrew when around them. Now that can still be true. The discovery made me reluctant to take her places that required a lot of social mingling. After that, I started going out alone as often as I could, and that heightened tensions even more at home. For me, life at home was a compromise. There were the joys, being there with my children and nurturing them, and the strains of trying to work on a marriage doomed from the start. There were moments when family life made me feel serene and harmony with the natural order of things. But there were too many times when the hassles kept me out of sorts. No matter how bad things got, I was determined to hang in there for a while for my children's sake. I had to see it that they got off to a better start and healthier start in life than I had. My parents had done a good job, the best they could, but they came from the old school, a generation that seldom talked to children or got into their heads. I wanted to try a different, more hands-on approach to child rearing. With Monroe, I had blown the chance to make an early impression before going off to prison. I always felt like an outsider, neither up to the responsibilities nor entitled to the full rights of a father. But with Ian and Maya, I had a direct in-house impact on how they were being raised. There was a chance to do it right, to instill in Maya a strong sense of herself so that she wouldn't grow up feeling dependent on men, to provide Ian a healthy blueprint of manhood devoid of all that macho bullshit, to show him it's all right to hug and kiss his father and to say I love you. I was determined that they would be taught to love themselves and their blackness. There were no white dolls or Santas in our house, no pictures of white people on our wall. There were black faces in their children's books and lots of warm, nurturing interactions with their parents. It was just the opposite with their mother and me. We drifted further apart, battling against differences too vast to overcome and heading towards an end that we both knew. I don't know. I disagree with a lot of that stuff, but hey, all right, we'll do that. Boo doo boo. Oh shit. Chapter 39. Often during those years after prison, it seemed that I was speeding the second half of life trying to straighten out all the mistakes made in the first. Every time I thought I'd overcome my past and gotten over the hump, something would come creeping up from nowhere and put shit in the game. Sometime in 1987, a call came from a woman at the Washington Post. They had an opening in one of their Maryland bureau offices, and I wondered if I'd be interested in applying. That was hell of an honor. The Washington Post is the major leagues. Practically every journalist, black or white, wants to work his way up to the Post or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. I took the offer as an indication that in covering City Hall, I'd gained some valuable experience that just might serve me well. Since I'd begun covering local politics, I'd received similar calls from other newspapers, and I'd actually interviewed for a few. I sent the materials to the Post wanted, my resume, my best news clips, and they scheduled a date for me to fly to D.C. I knew that the Post had recently promoted a black to be assistant managing editor in charge of the Metro section. That made me feel somewhat comfortable about interviewing there. Still, there was something about the prospect of interviewing at the Post that concerned me. The same thing that popped up anytime I considered a job anywhere. It was the 3-year gap in my resume. People usually want to know what I had done from 1975 until 1978. I wasn't inclined to tell them I spent those years studying at Penitentiary State University, nor did I feel comfortable making up bogus jobs to fill in the gap. Weeks before the interview, I agonized over whether to tell the paper about my prison past. I knew the Post did more thorough background checks than most newspapers. They began doing that after 1981, when it was discovered that a reporter who had written a Pulitzer Prize winning series about young heroin addict had made the story up. The reporter, Janet Cook, was black. Oh man, girl. Why you gonna do that? The Post management learned later that in addition to lying about the story, Cook had also lied about a college she attended. I was certain the Post would do a background checks to avoid future embarrassments. My intuition told me, tell the truth and be at peace. But recalling the painful experience in Louisville, where I thought I'd landed a job until I fessed up about my prison past, I wrestled with the issue and then decided to seek outside advice. I talked with an editor friend who suggested I tell the truth. Then I talked with an older cousin who reiterated something I've been taught all my life: never be truthful to whites. Don't tell them shit, he said. That settled it. That settled it. I'd withhold any detail about my prison and see what happened. The interview was far more involved than any other I'd experienced. I talked with several people over the course of about 2 days. I met the legendary Ben Bradley and the raspy voice editor and other bigwigs I heard and read so much about. A few of the people asked about the 3-year gap. I told them I dropped out of college and spent time trying to find myself. I thought, yeah, white people can relate to trying to find yourself. No one on earth spends more time trying to find themselves than white people. They all nodded, indicating they understood. That was a good one. That will work. The reaction of Milton Coleman, the black assistant managing editor, was different. When I told him I spent 3 years trying to find myself, he asked, "What did you do at that time?" His eyes bored right through me. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. I worked at the library. I spent time reading and thinking about what I'd do with my life. It was the truth, but not the whole truth. We got through that conversation, but I sensed Milton wasn't fully satisfied. He didn't say it, but something in his manner suggested he wanted to know more. Following that interview, I was happy to learn that I wouldn't be asked to fill out a job application. That surely would have contained the standard question, have you been convicted of a felony? I hadn't decided on how to respond and was glad I wasn't forced to make an on the spot judgment call. I returned to my hotel room exhausted but confident that the interview had gone well. Before leaving, I got subtle indications from a few people with whom I talked with that they felt I was a strong candidate for the job. I went back to Atlanta and waited. Several weeks later, I was sitting at my desk, working late, when my phone rang. I lifted the receiver. Nathan, it's Milton Coleman. The minute I heard his voice, I knew I was busted. It was the same intuitive knowing I felt the night at McDonald's. The alarms went off in my head. I braced for the blow. We exchanged greetings and small talk. Then he launched into his purpose for calling. Nathan, there's something I need to talk to you about. Someone at your former paper in the Norfolk told us that you've been to prison. Can you tell me why you didn't tell us about that? I wanted to ignore the question and run away. Just drop the receiver and haul ass. A whole host of regrets flooded my mind. I regretted ignoring my intuition. I regretted staying at work late. I regretted having gone on the interview in the first damn place. Why did I let these people complicate my life? I had a secure job and buried the past before they called. I had to go and get ambitious. Now, I gotta cop another guilty plea. In another life, I would have copped out and completely, even after learning that they had the goods on me. I would have gotten mad and given the world a middle finger. Fuck it, man. I don't want to talk about it and you can't make me. But this new life held me to different standards. So I took a deep breath and prepared to face the firing squad. I explained to Milton why I hadn't told them about my past. I told him what happened several years ago at a job interview in Louisville. You may not believe this, but I agonized over it for a lot before coming to Washington. I half expected him to cut me short and end the conversation, but he listened. He listened to the full explanation, then said, I understand. He said he would explain to the other people involved in the decision-making process. I have to tell you that some of them are against you because they feel you lied to them. I'll get back to you and let you know the outcome. I sat there at my desk for a long time, thinking of the implications of what I had just done. I felt I'd let myself down in the worst way and let down all the black people who would ever interview at the Post. Janet Cook lied. Nathan McCall lied. They would check the teeth and fingerprints of every black person who came through that door. Damn. I'm running from the past. I ran right into it. I was choked up inside. When I felt myself about to break, I got up, walked calmly to the men's room, went to the stall, and wept like a baby. After several minutes, I collected myself, wiped my eyes, gave myself a good talking to. You've been through too much to have to go through this again. Don't take yourself through it, man. Put an end to it. I returned to my desk and called Milton Coleman. When he came to the phone, I said, Milton, I thought about our conversation and I'd like to remove my name from consideration for the job. I don't want to go through this. After a brief silence, Milton said, I understand. I figured that he at least understood hardship. He had been in the news a lot during the 1984 presidential campaign because he had contributed information to a colleague's story revealing that the private conversations Justice Jackson had referred to Jews as Heimies and New York as Town. He did do that. Louis Farrakhan, who supported Jackson's campaign, added to the controversy by implying in a speech that Milton should be killed for betraying black people. Those had been tough times for Milton. Later on in our conversation, Milton revealed that he understood my feelings on a deep level. I have a brother who got in trouble with the law once. I know what he's been through. I said, then you do understand. Yeah, I have them take your name out the hat. There was a pause, then Milton said, "Look, man, I don't want you to be discouraged by this experience. It's got to be rough for you. I know, but sometimes we grow from experiences such as this. I promise you that I'll keep an eye out for your work. We'll keep you in mind. Who knows, maybe in a few years when all this blows over, we may want to reconsider you." It meant the world to me to talk with somebody on his professional level who understood. It struck me that a few black people in this country came from families where no one has been to prison. To some degree, we all understand. We do. Before hanging up, Milton offered a piece of advice that I have never forgotten. He said, "At some point, you're going to have to come to the realization that although you have been to prison, you have since built a track record in this world. You don't have to spend the rest of your life hiding past mistakes. You can now trust your track record, tell the truth, and put the past behind you." I said, "Thanks, man. I'll think about that." After we hung up, I went to the restroom and cried some more. All right, family, that's where we at. We'll pick up next week with some more. I don't know where we at, but we'll be at another start. G, I appreciate you stopping through for a second. Shaman God. Yeah, we'll chat it up. I'm wondering, I'll ask you at some other point, but I'm wondering if you're going to the Reiki party or you going to the tribe camp out. I actually need to post those. I actually need to post those. Excuse me, at least the flyer for the camp out. I know the Reiki party is for a selected few, but the camp out's for everybody. September 6th, you're in the camping. We're gonna have a camping trip. Now I think it's $45 now, which is better because at one time it was about $75 or something like that. As a matter of fact, it was so high. Well, I considered it. I'm like, I'm not going. But nah, I think $45 is very reasonable. So September 6th, we camping, family. Anyway, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your support. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and the start of your week before you get back here with Soul Swami live. I wish you plenty peace and blessings, family. Peace.